The Second World War saw some of the fiercest armored clashes the world had ever known. Every major power raced to field tanks with better guns, thicker armor, and greater mobility, all chasing supremacy on the battlefield. Germany unleashed mechanical giants like the Tiger and the Panther, fearsome, famous, and formidable. But when it came to sheer tank-killing efficiency, their deadliest weapon wasn't a heavy tank at all. Instead, it was a low-profile, unassuming machine, the Sturmgeschütz or StuG. Unlike traditional tanks that charged boldly across open terrain, StuG crews achieved great success, striking from cover, exploiting terrain, and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Through discipline, cunning, and sheer nerve, small StuG units turned back massive armored thrusts, achieving some of the highest kill-to-loss ratios of the entire war. Today, we dive deep into how the StuG crews perfected the deadly art of tank hunting. From their ambush tactics and camouflage tricks, to real battles where a few assault guns stood against overwhelming odds. The StuG 3 assault gun occupies a unique spot in the history of German armor, as the only tracked weapon system to serve throughout World War II in a consistent basic format. Initially intended as a mobile assault gun for direct fire support for infantry, the StuG 3 was continually modified and was eventually employed as a tank destroyer. It featured a simple design with just two compartments. The rear housed the 300 horsepower Maybach engine, while the forward section contained the angular superstructure that accommodated the gun and crew. The absence of a turret allowed for a significant reduction in weight, which enabled the StuG 3 to be fitted with 50mm frontal armor, much thicker than that of contemporary German tanks. This design also contributed to a low profile, with the vehicle standing only 6 feet 4 inches tall. It was easier to camouflage and presented a smaller target to enemy gunners, making it ideal for ambushing enemy tanks. StuG crews weren't traditional tankers. They were trained artillerymen, experts in gunnery, positioning, and deception. Their battlefield was not just defined by speed or armor, but by patience and positioning. Every ambush began with the terrain. Crews scouted carefully, choosing spots that offered concealment and clear fields of fire, tree lines, hedgerows, the outskirts of shattered villages, or behind gentle rises in the land. They aimed to lure the enemy into a kill zone, then unleash a sudden, devastating strike. They targeted enemy flanks and weak points, avoiding frontal engagements whenever possible. Camouflage was critical. Crews covered their vehicles in mud, tree branches, even bits of netting. Sometimes, a perfectly positioned StuG would remain invisible until it opened fire, and by then, it was too late. Several real-world engagements showcase these tactics in detail. Let's examine 3 battles where StuG crews, outnumbered and outgunned, turned the tide, using patience, precision, and terrain to their advantage. In early 1944, near the Ukrainian town of Korsun, 6 German divisions were trapped by the Red Army in a vast pocket of ice, snow, and fire. Among the desperate defenders were StuG units, assault guns that would soon turn the tide, if only for a moment. The German Relief Force, spearheaded by elements of the 1st and 16th Panzer Divisions, along with the battle-hardened Sturmgeschütz Brigade 301, struggled to break through Soviet lines to rescue their encircled comrades. Facing them were Soviet forces from the Second Ukrainian Front, including mass T-34-85 tanks, self-propelled guns like the Su-76, and motorized infantry. On February 6, 1944, a Soviet armored column, about 20 T-34s and Su-85s, advanced along a narrow, tree-lined road near the village of Oktyabrsko. Unknown to them, hidden along the flanks was a detachment from StuG Brigade 301. 6 StuG 3 assault guns waited in silence, engines off, guns trained on the kill zone. Their orders were clear: hold fire until the lead tanks entered the clearing, then unleash hell. At precisely 350 meters, optimal range for their long-barreled 75mm guns, the StuGs opened fire. The first salvo knocked out the lead T-34 and the rearmost Su-85, trapping the Soviet column. In the chaos that followed, Soviet tanks tried to maneuver off the road, only to bog down in the deep snow and soft fields. In less than 15 minutes, 14 Soviet vehicles were destroyed or immobilized. One German StuG was hit, but thanks to quick damage control, the crew bailed out safely and the vehicle was later recovered. The Soviet attack was shattered. Local Soviet commanders, fearing a counteroffensive, temporarily pulled back their armor, buying critical time for German relief columns to move closer to the encircled forces. At Korsun, 6 assault guns held back the Red Army for a crucial few hours. A captured Soviet after-action report later described the scene. Enemy anti-tank guns inflicted heavy losses. Assault groups were decimated by hidden fire. It wasn't about superior armor or overwhelming firepower. It was about knowing when and exactly where to strike. By late 1944, the Courland pocket in Latvia had become a crucible for the remnants of Germany's Army Group North. Encircled by Soviet forces, these units faced relentless assaults, with little hope of reinforcement or retreat. In the middle of this situation, Major Joseph Sepp Brandner took command of StuG Brigade 912. An experienced StuG commander, Brandner had previously distinguished himself on the Eastern Front, earning the German Cross in Gold for his tank hunting prowess. On December 21, 1944, during the Third Battle of Courland, Soviet forces launched a massive offensive aimed at severing the Tuchem-Frauenberg Road, a critical supply and communication channel for the German defenders. Anticipating the attack, Brandner had meticulously scouted the terrain the day before, positioning his StuG 3 assault guns in concealed, strategic locations. As the Soviet armored spearhead advanced, Brandner's brigade sprang the trap. In a coordinated counterattack, the StuGs engaged the enemy at close range, exploiting their ambush positions to maximum effect. Within a short span, they destroyed 26 Soviet tanks, halting the offensive and preserving the integrity of the German lines. Brandner's leadership and tactical acumen during this engagement earned him the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. The Soviet forces were undeterred. On January 25, 1945, they initiated the Fourth Battle of Courland. Once again, Brandner's brigade played a pivotal role in the defense, destroying over 77 Soviet tanks. Brandner himself notched his 57th personal tank kill during this battle. In the Fifth Battle of Courland, beginning on February 20, 1945, the Soviets attempted another breakthrough. In a fierce 2-hour engagement, StuG Brigade 912 destroyed 45 Soviet tanks, sealing a breach in the German lines and forcing the enemy to withdraw. For his continued exemplary leadership and battlefield success, Brandner was awarded the Oak Leaves to his Knight's Cross on April 26, 1945, a testament to his role in the prolonged defense of the Courland pocket. Brandner's actions exemplify the deadly efficiency of StuG crews when employing ambush tactics. His ability to leverage terrain, concealment, and precise firepower turned the tide of multiple engagements, even when facing overwhelming odds. As the Allies push inland from the Normandy beaches, the lush fields and ancient hedgerows of France turn into a deadly maze. Here, the low silhouette of the German StuG finds its deadliest killing field, not on the open plains, but in ambushes fought at 50 meters or less. In the chaos after D-Day, German armored units scrambled to contain the Allied breakout near Caen. Among the defenders were independent StuG units like Sturmgeschütz Brigade 394 and others attached to divisions like 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend and Panzer Lehr. But this was not tank warfare as the Germans knew it. Normandy's thick hedgerows, ancient earthen walls covered in dense vegetation, made every field a trap. Visibility was often less than 100 meters. In these close quarters, the StuG 3's low profile and powerful 75mm gun became a deadly advantage. One of the most desperate actions took place near the village of St. Froment during the American push south of Corentin. Elements of StuG Brigade 394, supporting remnants of the 352nd Infantry Division, were tasked with halting the American advance spearheaded by the U.S. 9th Infantry Division and attached Sherman tanks from the 746th Tank Battalion. Using the natural cover of the bocage, StuG crews dug firing pits behind thick hedgerows, placing their vehicles so only their gun barrels protruded through tiny gaps. Spotters hidden in trees relayed Sherman movements by radio. On the morning of July 11th, a column of Sherman tanks advanced cautiously along narrow lanes south of St. Froment. American infantry cleared hedgerows by hand, but armored vehicles struggled to maneuver or spot hidden threats. Suddenly, from less than 70 meters away, the StuGs opened fire. The first Shermans were hit and burned immediately, blocking the narrow lanes. StuGs shifted positions after each shot using pre-dug backup pits. Some American tanks attempted to flank, only to drive directly into hidden German positions. In the space of 3 hours, the Americans lost at least 14 tanks and several half-tracks. U.S. infantry was forced to call in artillery and airstrikes to suppress the German anti-tank nests. Despite their heroic defenses, units like StuG Brigade 394 could only delay the inevitable. Ammunition shortages, constant Allied artillery fire, and overwhelming numbers forced gradual withdrawals. But in key moments, like at St. Froment, a handful of StuGs managed to hold off superior American armored forces for entire days, inflicting disproportionate losses and slowing the Allied advance through the hedgerows. The StuG is one of the rare cases where reality lived up to the hype. Renowned as a tank killer, it proved to be one of the most successful tank destroyers of all time. According to the Tank Museum at Bovington, by the end of the war, the StuG had racked up an impressive 30,000 Russian tank kills, more than any other German combat vehicle, and surpassing all Allied tanks. From the brutal encirclement battles on the Eastern Front, to the hedgerows of Normandy and the last stands in the Courland Pocket, StuG crews repeatedly demonstrated how disciplined tactics could overcome superior numbers. The StuG wasn't designed to be a tank hunter, but war has a way of reshaping roles. Through necessity, adaptation, and relentless training, its crews turned it into one of Germany's most lethal battlefield tools. While other armored vehicles grabbed headlines, it was the StuG that quietly racked up more tank kills than any other German platform in the war.